Sorry. Welcome everybody to Who Pays for Water, a teach-in being put forth today by the Swim Coalition.
Hold on. I have to advance the slide. Here we go.
Here we go. So as you're coming into the room, if you haven't already, please add your name, your pronouns, your organizational affiliation, if any, and your borough of residence. Sorry about that. Should have put that in the initial prompt. My apologies. And then just going over a little bit about what today will look like. We're after welcome introductions. We're going to be talking about the water infrastructure in New York City, and then we're going to get into super wonky, but it's going to be a great conversation about what your water bill is and how it's where it comes from, how it's calculated, and then talk about how changing how we pay for water, and also talk about where we can take action collectively, individually, and then next steps for us as a coalition. So, by what we hope is that by the end of this teach-in, everybody will have a good understanding and know who pays for water infrastructure. We also want you to be able to walk away understanding how the water rate is currently structured, as well as understanding, because of climate change and population growth and all of these other things, the changing need for managing stormwater in New York City. And then also have some advocacy, some outreach and education, and some other platforms that we can use to be familiar with efforts to make the water bill much more equitable. So who we are the Swim Coalition. That stands for Stormwater Infrastructure Matters. We're big proponents of green infrastructure and nature-based solutions to get to the ultimate goals of the Clean Water Act, which is fishable, swimmable conditions in all of our waterways. So we are composed of over 70 different organizations who are clean water advocates, environmental justice groups, local grassroots organizations, and many of whom are represented here. And we're guided by a steering committee of a number of key players in the New York City clean water scene. But today I'm Michelle Lupke. I'm the program manager, and with us is
Good afternoon. I'm Shino. My pronouns are she, her, her. I'm the executive director of the New York City Soil and Water Conservation District. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. And a member of the Swim Steering Committee.
great. Take it
Okay,
away, Sheena.
so who pays your water bill? You can put that in the chat or you can unmute. Who pays your water bill? Anybody have any thoughts? Do you know who pays your water bill? Your landlord, yes. Uh-huh. Excellent. Some people do directly. Yeah. The building pays for the water bill. Uh-huh. Co-op pays it. Yeah. But if your landlord is paying it, you are actually paying it, right? It's included in your rent. Or if you're a co-op, it's included in your maintenance fee. So yes, the person paying the bills may actually be your landlord or the co-op treasurer, a condo treasurer, or you if you own a single family home, but you're still paying for it. And that's something that is very important to remember. Paying for water is not like paying for taxes. Paying for water is something that every single person who pays rent or maintenance fee are actually paying. Okay, so let's talk about water infrastructure in New York City a little bit. Is this you or me, Michelle? This is me, right?
This is you.
Okay. All right. So we wanted to go over a little bit about the water infrastructure in general, because this is the infrastructure that's managed by New York City Department of Environmental Protection. So they're responsible for drinking water. We have a system of reservoirs. I think it's 13, 12 reservoirs. I can't remember the exact number. All in upstate, we have several different watersheds that connect these reservoirs and tunnels that are hundreds of miles connecting these reservoirs that delivers water to New York City. This is a really old system, more than 100 years old, but it actually gives us some of the best water in the world, I would say. We are really lucky in New York City to have this kind of system that gives us really high quality water. This is all gravity fed as well. So it's coming from the Catskill Mountains, and by gravity, it travels all the way down to New York City. And we have a smaller watershed system on the east side of the Hudson called the Croton watershed. And this is a very quick overview. Most of you know where we get our water from. But one of the reasons, oh, and we use 1 billion gallons of water a day. That's how much water New York City consumes every single day. It's actually a little bit under 1 billion right now because the conservation efforts have been so successful. We are using a little less than 1 billion gallons these days. But that's an equivalent to 1,500 Olympic-sized swimming pools, or enough to fill 3.6 Empire State Buildings. That is a lot of water the city consumes. And the quality of this water is protected by nature. This is one of the reservoirs, Patuxent Reservoir, which is, as you can see, surrounded by forests. And this is by design. We have what's called a filtration avoidance determination from the EPA that gives us, exempts us from using filtration facilities to filter the water because we're allowing nature to do that filtration for us. So the city has bought up land around the reservoirs to make sure that the land doesn't get developed, and we're maintaining that natural system all around the reservoirs. So nature is what's giving us all that great, clean, high quality water. How much water does each New Yorker use every day? And this is a Zoom poll, so let's see if I can launch that. Bear with me. Why do they change this? Hold on, here we go. Here we go. All right. You see the question? Okay. This is on the per person basis. How much water does each New Yorker use? We'll give you a few more minutes. No, not a few more minutes, 1 more minute. Okay. It's a nice spread. Let's see what the actual answer is. And that's how you all answered. And the answer is 118 gallons. But that's an average. So you might actually be using less. Um, and this also is sort of a mathematical average. There are people who don't live in New York City but commute during the day. So those folks are using water as well, but that's not counted into the population of New York City necessarily. But it gives you an idea of how much water a person needs or a person uses, not exactly needs. So that's a quick tour of the drinking water. Let me get rid of this all from my screen. Okay. So then what happens after you drink that water is that it goes out of your system. And this is the part that we often talk about at Swim Coalition. We have 14 wastewater treatment plants. which are actually now called water resource recovery facilities. They keep changing the names, but water resource recovery facilities are these 14, what we would know as wastewater treatment plants. And they take our wastewater, all of it, and treats it, and then discharges into the water body after disinfection and making sure the water is clean enough. And that's a lot of wastewater because essentially what goes in comes out. So these facilities are managing 1 billion gallons of wastewater every single day. And one of the biggest one is the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant, which has the capacity of 350 million gallons per day of wastewater. What the DEP does is design these facilities to be able to handle twice the volume that is the traditional conventional volume of wastewater. So as a system, the 14 wastewater treatment plants can treat more than 2 billion gallons. That's how they're designed. And this is the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant. And I'm sorry, I'm not used to saying wastewater resource recovery facilities. I'm just going to say wastewater treatment plant. The four these eggy looking things these are big eggs. They are digesters that digest organic material into, I guess, the end result being biosolids from here, which are essentially compost made from human waste and other wastes. But because of these wastewater treatment plants, our water quality has improved a great deal compared to 100 years ago. So these are essential infrastructure that is maintained by New York City DEP. And then the other component of the water is the stormwater. And that is one place where we have been doing a lot of outreach and education about. Stormwater used to fall on a landscape that used to look like this, right? Whenever it rained in New York City or Manhattan back then, this is the landscape. And when rain falls on landscape like this, it just goes into the ground. Or even if it runs off on the surface, it goes into the streams, and it's a natural hydrologic system that supports a hydrologic cycle that rain goes into the ground, merges the groundwater, it might become a stream, it evaporates back into the atmosphere, and it comes down as rain again or snow. And that was the natural hydrologic circle, and this was the landscape. But this is the landscape we have now. We paved it over, we chopped down trees, and the water now has nowhere to go except the sewage system that we put into the ground. So when it rains, streets can flood, that rainwater can just gush into the stormwater system, and it creates a whole bunch of problems. Is this still me, Michelle? Am I supposed to hand it over to you? Oh, okay. I feel like I've been doing a lot of the talking. All right. Um, Sorry. So we have two different ways of managing stormwater in the city of New York, and most of you probably know this. One is called the combined sewer system, where there is one set of pipes carrying stormwater from the streets and roofs and carrying wastewater from buildings. So what happens is on the left is a sunny day that wastewater from the building goes straight into the pipes, this combined sewer system, and it goes directly to the sewage treatment plant. That's not a problem at all, right? Just from your household into to the state sewage treatment plant. But when it rains, the pipes get filled up from all the runoff from the streets and also from the rooftops and any other surfaces where the water cannot infiltrate into the ground. that water ends up in the combined sewer system. And when the amount of rain reaches that point where the pipes get filled, then we have what's called a combined sewer overflow, where mixture of water, the rainwater and the raw untreated sewage, that mixture gets discharged directly into the waterway. So that is a health hazard, definitely, for those recreational water users, but also it could be a problem for the ecosystem as well. It's putting a lot of excess nutrients. Oops, sorry. So essentially, combined sewer overflow is wastewater, that's your sewage, added in with stormwater and getting discharged untreated. And this is a famous video. You can look it up on YouTube. It's the Guanas Canal sewage overflow. It's a video, so you can see this plume moving ahead and you can tell which way it's moving because the color is different. And you can hear the person who's filming this gagging from the smell. It's quite a video. And we have 20 billion gallons per year of these discharges from more than 400 points along the waterway. These are combined over outflow end of pipe places. If you look over the shoreline in New York City, you can see these pipes, and there usually is a sign that says combined sewer overflow. And there's a sign that says don't fish, don't swim, don't get in the water. But together for the whole city, 20 billion gallons of the mixture of rainwater and raw sewage gets discharged into our waterways every year. And that's enough to fill 70 Empire State Buildings. That's a lot of untreated sewage going into our waterways. And the city is divided roughly this way. So the light blue is the combined sewer area. This is where combined sewer discharge happens. That's about 60% of the city. The pink area, the orange area is what's called a separately sewered area. That's where the stormwater has their own piping system, and the stormwater that ends up in the separate sewer pipes go directly into the waterway rather than mixing with the household wastewater. And then there's a pink area that's direct drainage areas that could be overland flow, or they could be pipes managed privately by private facility and infrastructure owners. So the majority of the city, though, is combined sewer, except in Staten Island, it's actually majority separately sewered. The slides are a little bit out of order. Sorry about that, folks. So the separate storm sewer is again storm sewer and the sewage are separate. So the sewer goes into its own pipe and it goes to the sewage treatment plant, and the runoff from roofs and street and sidewalks will go into its own separate pipes. That's the one on the right. And discharges directly without mixing with sewage, which seems like a good thing, but if you think about what is on your street surface, so the rain or snow then mixes with everything on the surface of the impervious surface, right? It could be animal waste, pet waste, pigeon, rats waste. That's actually pretty scary. And then there's quite a bit of chemicals on the surface, organic contaminants or inorganic contaminants as a byproduct of fossil fuel combustion. We still have trucks running on diesel, and that exhaust goes into the air, but it comes back down onto the surface with rainwater. And there's also poorly maintained cars, antifreeze, and whatnot on the street surface, and oils and grease, and whatever else ends up on the street surface and sidewalk surface and on the roofs will get washed away whenever it rains with the stormwater. And that is the separate storm sewer discharge. It's still polluted water. It just doesn't contain human waste. And it might look like that on some streets. And it also, the system that we've created leads to flooding, which is a huge problem because sometimes the storm drains get clogged and it creates local flooding. But also with climate change, we're seeing more severe rain events where you get 3 inches of rain in a very short period of time, and the system is completely overwhelmed and it starts to flood. And it's becoming a familiar sight to many of us. So now I hand it over to you.
Yes. So some of the solutions to the things that Shino's been talking about are green infrastructure. And so what is that? If you have no idea of what green infrastructure is, we will lead you through a bunch of different uh, types. This was put out by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection originally.
No, 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 this is
No?
us.
Oh,
This is
was
us.
this us?
Yes,
Oh,
it's
okay.
This
Corinne.
was
Corinne
a
made it.
swim coalition with lots of
Yes.
fellows and students in the past.
My
Absolutely.
bad. My bad. Well, good. It's adorable. Um, yes. What likes water more than whales? Bioswales. Um, However, the city doesn't call them bioswales anymore. They call them rain gardens. I'm really glad they call them rain gardens because everybody knows what rain is and everybody knows what a garden is. So it makes a lot of sense when you call it a rain garden. Um, but originally, this type of garden would have been called a right-of-way bioswale. And you see on the right-hand side, there's a curb cut, and so that actually takes flooding off of the street into this pit. But then also there you can do different types of green infrastructure with lots of different co-benefits. So one of the co-benefits here is you have native pollinator plants or native pollinator friendly plants and native species that are providing habitat and food sources for insects and other other micro species and also birds on the Atlantic flyway. So there can be lots of different co-benefits created with all the various types of green infrastructure, like this one, which is the Queensland green roof next to the aforementioned Newtown digesters. And this is an example of an extensive green roof. So it's uh, larger, or no, it's not an extensive. No, it is an extensive. Yes, sorry. With native plants again on a larger expanse. Green roofs can be good for insulating and lessening the heating and cooling costs of a building, in addition to providing stormwater relief. Next one, please. Then we have some of the green streets that the DEP has promoted, where they put green sections in the medians, but really also street trees take up quite a bit of water from our, and prevent localized flooding. But in addition, they provide a lot of shade and cooling benefits through their evapotranspirative properties, basically tree sweating, and it makes everybody feel cool, which is great. And these are just other types of green infrastructure. And I think we have one last, which is an example of a sponge park at the end of at a street end leading to the Gowanus Canal. And so this can obviously is using native species and acts as a filtration before it gets to the local water body. So a lot of these are different types of green infrastructure installations that can have a lot of different co-benefits in addition to the stormwater managed. Next one, please. There we go. Reduces the amount of stormwater going into the system. It reduces the frequency and the locations of sewage overflows, which is great for water quality in the city. It mitigates local flooding and helps absorb stormwater, so it can be used for localized solutions. Like we talked about, it not only cools, but it also improves air quality through street trees and other plants, sequesters carbon through those same trees, and creates shading and decreases air temperature. And now it's back
Great.
to you, Shino.
Okay, so now we can get to talk about how the city pays for all of that infrastructure. So this is a similar question to the very first one, but who has seen a water bill or knows how much the water bill is for your building? And Tracy, I know you have, but you can put it in the chat. Who has seen the water bill or know how much you pay for water? If you want to unmute, you can do that as well. Laura had seen one, but don't recall exact numbers, except it was high. It went up because my landlord increased. Ooh, wow, okay. Caitlin has. Sorry, sorry. Okay, so let's actually, and most of you probably have not. And to be honest, I've lived in New York City since 1982, and it wasn't until maybe 6 or 7 years ago when I took over at the treasurer of my co-op that I actually saw a water bill. I knew that I was paying for it, but I had never seen one. I had no idea how much we were paying for it. So most New Yorkers likely have never seen a water bill. And New York City is actually an 85% renter occupied city. So that kind of makes sense. But it's important, right? So you rent or you own, we are all paying for water, right? We talked about that at the beginning, whether it's incorporated into your rent, maintenance, or you actually pay the bill directly, you're paying for it. The water bill has three components: drinking water, sewage and wastewater, and stormwater. Those are what you're paying for in the water bill. So I'm going to dissect the water bill for you. The water bill is actually the way the DEP, actually it's the water board, not the DEP. DEP uses the money, but the water bill is in the realm of the New York City Water Board. The water bill right now has actually only two components. One is the drinking water, and then there is a charge called the wastewater charge. Those are the only two charges you will see in your water bill: drinking water charge and the wastewater charge. But where is the stormwater? The stormwater is actually incorporated into the wastewater charge. So your building has a water meter. So the DEP knows, the water board knows how much water your building is using. And that's how the rate is set. It's based on drinking water. So they charge you for the drinking water, and that's a straight up charge based on the meter or usage. And then what the water bill does is add 159% of the drinking water charge for wastewater charge. So the wastewater charge actually includes both stormwater and sanitary sewer, your wastewater charge. It has those two components rolled into one. And what this means is that the water bill considers your stormwater to be 59% of your drinking water charge, right? Because what goes in comes out. So it makes sense that 100% wastewater charge should be the 100%, or the sanitary sewer, sorry, have to be clear about terminology here. Your sanitary sewer charge should be the same as drinking water charge. So the city is adding 59% to that charge to manage stormwater. And that's across the board everywhere. And this is what the actual water bill looks like. This is from our co-op building. It's for this cycle, it's $702.74, but it's not monthly. It's a quarterly billing. So it's from, if you see down here, the read period, the meter reading period is 91 days. It's about 3 months. And we used 70 HCF. That's HCF, it's 100 cubic feet. That's the unit. They charge you by 100 cubic feet. That's the per unit of water charge. And this building, my building, used 70 cubic feet of water for 3 months between August and November. And then you see here up in the upper right corner, the water consumption is then $353.50 based on the 100 cubic feet charge. And the wastewater charge is 159% of that. Oh, and sorry, this cycle, the bill is $915.57. The last bill was $702. So then we have a couple other charges added to this, like we just added a service line protection. This is the 1836. So there are a couple other things in there, but the basic water charge here is $915 for 3 months for a building that has 10 units. And the basic water charge right now for this fiscal year is $5.05 for 100 cubic feet of potable water, that's drinking water. And that's about 784 gallons. That's what 100 cubic feet translates to. So per gallon, it's 67 cents. That's pretty good. It's not super expensive. And if you look at the surveys done by the city, our water charge is somewhere in the middle of variety of different water utilities across the nation. So we're not on the expensive side and we're not on the cheap side. We're somewhere in that beautiful middle ground. But 67 cents a gallon seems pretty reasonable. So then let's analyze my building. We used 576 gallons per day. And that I did the calculation of that 70, 100 cubic feet of water, translated it in, and we get 576 gallons per day for that billing cycle. We have 10 units, but only 7 people live in those 10 units. So 7 residents. That works out to about 82 gallons per resident per day. But I told you it's 118 gallons per day average. So this is where all that calculation mismatch comes in. But we're pretty good, 82 gallons per day per resident. And that translates to $17 for water for 30 days per resident. I'm just normalizing for per month charges here. That's an easier way to think about, right? Because you pay your rent per month, your maintenance per month. So, and it's $26 of wastewater for 30 days per residence. This all works out to about $43 per person per month for the water bill in my building. So it's my husband and me, 2 of us, it's $86. I'm just giving you a rough sense of the scale of water bills that a typical co-op building resident might be paying. Single family home with more people and lawns and whatnot, probably a little bit different water usage. But if you live in a multiple dwelling buildings, this is probably a good ballpark of how much you're all paying every month, incorporated into your maintenance. So somebody just put in the chat that your rent went up because the water rate went up. Well, the water rate actually didn't go up that high. You can look up what the percentage increase was for this year. I think it was a single-digit percentage, if I remember right. Well, I may not remember, so we can look it up and I can let you know. But you might want to think about, how much of your maintenance fee might be water rate. It's probably under $100. So if the landlord raised your rent by $500, it may not be the water bill. Okay. I think this is you, Michelle.
Yeah. So, I want to quiz y'all and see what you think. So, um, if you think it's the big box store, I want you to reply with the clapping. And if it's the apartment building, I want you to reply with the happy hat, the party hat. Okay, so which property type do you think uses more water? The clap if you think it's the Home Depot, or party hat if you think it's the apartment building. Ooh, this is fun. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Now, which property do you think generates more stormwater runoff? If it's the box store, remember you clap. And if it's the apartment building, you happy ta-da hat. Aha. Oh, ho,
Ah,
ho. Okay. So everybody's
okay.
on board on this one. Okay. Yes. So, as you all suspected, that's exactly where we're going with this. So, in a big box store, you might have one or two bathrooms. You might have, maybe your employees are filling some water bottles throughout the day, but probably you're not going to have a very high water usage. So, in the current type of calculation of their water bill, a big box store isn't paying much when they have this set 159% of their drinking water usage. Whereas an apartment building is going to have a lot more sinks, more bathrooms. If they're lucky enough to have two toilets in one apartment, good for them. Probably makes their roommate situation a lot better. But what happens is, because there's more potable water coming into that property, their water bill is a lot bigger. However, when we look at it from a stormwater perspective, that large impervious surfaces create a lot of stormwater, which isn't necessarily reflected in that bill. Whereas the apartment complex, it has a very small stormwater contribution, especially when it's in a row like this. And so what ends up happening is that the smaller buildings are actually um, enabling and allowing the big box stores to be free riders to the system, whereas they're contributing a lot of stormwater and they are not paying an equitable amount for it.
So I am going to stop sharing for a minute and force you all to participate. What are your ideas for making water bill fairer now that you know some of the problems, right? The last slide was showing us how we are all subsidizing stormwater management on properties that have a huge amount of impervious surfaces. What are some of the ways we can make the water bill more equitable across different property types? How big of a problem is this? Um,
I think it might be worth talking about a little bit about generally about the costs of stormwater management in the city and what that means in terms of what the revenue is being used for. Maybe a little bit. I don't know if that's later. Sheena?
Cost of stormwater management. That is something that I didn't look up.
Because I think that that's part of what might make this an issue, right?
Well,
Right.
I think when we say when we would answer how big of a problem is this, it is a problem and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So when we look at any time we have a combined sewer overflow event and we have water pollution going into all of our waterways, that's a health concern not only for humans but also for ecosystems. When it has trash and other things in it, it creates issues for wildlife ingestion and also um, it uh, and then as we have climate change coming, we're getting both more coastal flooding as well as sort of stochastic, chaotic, um, large, catastrophic storm events in areas that typically didn't flood, and you're seeing people die. So I would say it's an issue. It's a big issue.
Right, and the city's already investing billions of dollars to address the combined sewer overflow issues. So it's into the billions. And thank you, Tyler, for putting that figure in. The New York City DEP estimates that it would cost $30 billion to achieve a basic level of stormwater resilience. So that includes both the water quality as well as flood mitigation measures, right? When the DEP first started embarking on this combined sewer overflow problem back in the 1990s, and the city's under the consent order from the state to abate combined sewer overflows. When they first started that, the city wasn't really focused on flooding. That's a relatively recent infrastructure needs that really have been increasing because of climate change. So in the last 10 years or so, I think the city has really had to grapple with how we address flooding as well as the Clean Water Act mandates. So the cost is increasing and the need for stormwater management infrastructure is increasing as well. Right? We're doing really well on the drinking water side, and that's another place where it's actually sort of ironic because the city has done such a good job of water conservation. Right? We all have water efficient shower heads and faucets now, and new constructions have to install water efficient toilets that use far fewer gallons. So because of that, the revenue for the city has actually been decreasing. Yet the infrastructure needs, particularly on the stormwater side, has been increasing. So this is one of the big problems. And it's, I can't give you a dollar scale of the problem, but it's, again, it's in the billions and it definitely is something needs to be done. And somebody put in here, and I'm having a hard time keeping up with the chat, but incentivize green infrastructure. That is a fantastic idea that we have been trying to do. So there's the green roof tax abatement, which was something that Swim Coalition was able to get done. That was definitely a swim thing. We advocated and we were able to do that. We also have the green infrastructure grants program the DEP started, and that was also our advocacy. So there are incentives. What
Yeah.
else do you see, Michelle?
There are barriers to incentives or there's barriers to participation because of size requirements to qualify for the city's green infrastructure grant programs. Even the smallest one, it has to be 3,500 square feet or larger, so that if you're talking about an apartment building, it's probably going to be multiple apartment buildings, and so that's one of the projects that trying to find groups who can help. Well, the other issue about green infrastructure is that most of the green infrastructure that has gone in has been on public property. And so what we really need to do is get green infrastructure on private property. And then not if, the stormwater rate or the water rate is restructured, then those who have put in green infrastructure will get credit water that their property is um, for whatever reduction in stormwater that their property has put. Um,
I'm seeing the chat, and there's some
Hmm.
really great
Hmm.
But
ideas in
by
here.
the way, I'm adding some relevant
Yes,
links
thank
in
you.
response to some of the suggestions as well.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Lionel. Lionel is also on the steering committee of the Swim Coalition, by the way. Um, so in Portland, Iris says in Portland, Oregon, many parking lots have rain gardens. Yeah. So in New York City, the DEP started a new program about 10 years ago, maybe more, charging parking lots without any water connections. So there are a lot of parking lots in New York City where there's just a little attendant booth, but there's no connection to potable water, but they generate stormwater. So DEP started charging them, and it's very little. And I think originally we thought that they would actually implement green infrastructure because it was like it was rolled out with we're going to charge you for your parking lot square footage, but if you implement green infrastructure, you'll get your water rate water bill reduced. Nobody actually did the incentives, and they're all paying the fee. So this is where the difficult is in setting the rate. Is you have to set it so that green infrastructure would actually provide an incentive, and the ratepayer will actually implement green infrastructure. Apparently, the parking lot rate is too low that nobody wants to bother spending capital money up front to get the bill reduction. So we do have that program, and it is still, as far as I know, ongoing. And the parking lot owners who don't have water connection are still paying water bill. So a couple ideas that we want to pick up on because this is what we're doing, and maybe we'll just go back to sharing the screen. So we have been advocating for restructuring the water rate, and we should talk a little bit about the values in guiding us in moving that forward. What are some of the values we should be thinking about in revising the water bill if we want to restructure the water bill? And that was in the chat as well. Somebody said, well, separate out the stormwater part, right? And make it commensurate with the amount of impervious surface the property has. And that is essentially what we have been advocating for. But we also want to be sure that we are not just doing that because water is essential for human survival, right? Without water, humans and all living things cannot exist, cannot live. So affordability is one of the values of SWIM, mine personally as well. We want to make sure that whatever we do, the water bill is affordable, especially to those who are most marginalized by our society, because everybody pays for it. Again, it's not like a tax. Everybody pays for water. So making water affordable that's a value. But what are other values that we should be clear about? Any thoughts on values in water rate? The end goal of contributing to safe, swimmable water. I love it. Yes. Yes. Clean Water Act. Yay. Driving water conservation. Yeah, that's important too, right? Further driving water conservation, but still generate enough revenue for the city of New York to be able to do what they need to do. That's a really tricky one too. Poor people pay, yes, yeah. The economically disadvantaged people do pay proportionally more for water because they're paying more for rent, they're paying more for food, and they're paying more for water and wastewater. Yep. Charge high use consumers more per unit. I love that. Yeah, and there are some high use consumers, and there are some businesses that rely on water, and we don't want to necessarily burden businesses if they're small businesses, but I think there's another way to think about, if you use a lot of water, even as a residential customer, if you are careless and use a lot of water, then they should pay more. Thank you for those. What about a modified polluters pay principle where the land use accumulating runoff are paying for its management? Yeah. Yep. Those are great values. Thank you all. So essentially, we want to think about who should pay for water because right now, everybody pays 59% of your wastewater bill towards stormwater. And I'm thinking about my co-op building, and my top floor tenant has, it's not a green roof, but she has vegetation on the roof, planter boxes and a trestle with plants growing. And it's a relatively small footprint. So we're probably not generating a lot of stormwater into the system. So essentially, I'm paying for that Home Depot up in the Bronx or in Brooklyn, right? Because they're the one generating a lot of stormwater. So then who should really pay for stormwater? Well, whoever generates stormwater should pay for it, right? Because right now the wastewater charge is both stormwater and sanitary sewer. And the stormwater really has to do more with the amount of impervious surfaces on your property more than anything else, while the sanitary sewer has to do with how much water you use. This is how it's set up right now. Even though stormwater has to do with your property type and not how much water you use, it is tied to how much water you use right now. But what if the water bill has 3 separate components: drinking water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater? And the stormwater will be dependent on the property type and the amount of imperviousness. But also, we have to consider affordability as well. So in terms of ensuring affordability, there are some existing programs. They're called customer assistance programs, CAP, within the water rate right now. There's an income-based discounts and other discounts available. There's also flexible payment terms so that you don't end up with a huge bill during the month that you use more water. So it just evens out the bill across the billing cycles. There is also a short-term or one-time financial assistance for unexpected hardship. So something happens and you're having a hard time paying your bills, then the water board will give you some financial assistance. And there's also the water efficiency program. They will swap you out for water efficient fixtures if you need to. So these are the existing assistance programs within the water board right now. But if you look elsewhere, there are other affordability programs used by other water utilities across the country. There's a thing called the lifeline rate, which is a fixed rate for the first X gallons of water, whatever that gallon the water authority decides to be. And it's effective for reducing burdens on single family homes. So instead of, this is just one scenario out of many, but some water utilities use this. It's a fixed rate for a particular number of gallons. Let's say, 600 gallons for a family for a month. Well, that's probably a lot, but and that helps out for single family homeowners because it gives them that predictability of water bill. There's also a capped rate, and I can't explain the details. I'll have to look up my notes. And there's tiered billing, which is the first usage is a lower rate. As the usage goes up, the rate gets higher. That was suggested in the chat. If you use more water, you should pay more. So that's the tiered rate. Capped rate, I think there's a higher, the highest amount you pay for the water usage. And there is green infrastructure discount. This is pretty common. Philadelphia and DC and Seattle all do this. They have separated out their water bill, the wastewater bill, into two components. So these cities charge you for stormwater separately depending on the property types, and they offer green infrastructure discount. So if you put a rain garden, then your stormwater fee is reduced. So there are all these billing tools available to make sure that water bill remains affordable for those who need to. So, do you have any more ideas? And do you have concerns about how we've presented our ideas to you? I'm going to stop sharing. And what are your thoughts on what we're proposing in terms of separating out stormwater charge from the wastewater charge? And what are your thoughts about how we should make sure that the water bill remains affordable? Try to avoid any system where the cost of measuring stormwater volume is high. Yes, so luckily we're not the first city to think about doing this. So Philadelphia has done a great deal of work, and we can look to them to figure out how we move forward. So there's plenty of good information available in terms of how we assign stormwater charge to the property types. That we don't actually have to measure every single property and calculate the stormwater volume generated by each property. I think it's a very good idea to separate them out, feel as if it would by nature make it more affordable for residents since they would no longer be subsidizing box stores. Yes, that could be true for multiple high density residential buildings. I think apartment buildings, multiple unit buildings would definitely see the water bill reduced slightly. How would a change to the bill structure be realized? Is it a local law state? Good question. So in the city of New York, it's the water board that sets the water rate, and they do this every single year. There's a public comment period and public meeting. Y'all can go there. Some of us believe the water board has the legal authority to do this because they set the water rate, right? Why couldn't they just restructure the water rate? We believe they could, but the city has been reluctant to move ahead without clear legal authority. So there's a group of us, and Tyler has been one of the leaders in this effort. We've approached the state legislature and asked them to put a clarifying language in the state law that governs the water board and other water utilities. This isn't just New York City. And put it in the law that stormwater management and paying for stormwater management is the legal authority of these water utilities across the state. And that these utilities may charge for stormwater management. That's sort of the rephrasing of what the law said, but that's essentially the spirit of this bill. It's moved through the Senate last year, got stuck in assembly. Folks are trying to push that through as well. This bill does not require the city to do anything or any other water utility. That's really important to remember. This bill is merely a clarifying bill, right? It clarifying the authority of the water board to do what we want them to do. So yes, we're working on that, even though we think the water board can do it already.
And it's clarifying stormwater as a pollutant, and it's classifying stormwater as a pollutant to be managed. And Tracy put it in the chat. It's called Rain Ready New York. If you want to get involved, reaching out local electeds, please let any of us know. Tyler is also um, really involved in this. And so we can send out some more information on how to do Rain Ready New York uh, propaganda to your local electeds to get it passed.
And Caitlin says if they were separated out, I imagine there would be misinformation about overcharging. Yes. Um, yes. That's been a very tricky territory that some of us have had to navigate. We don't know if we separate it out. There's so many ways to, I don't like the saying, but skin this cat, right? I need to come up with a different saying for this. There are many ways to structure the water rate. Um, and there are many different ways to separate out the stormwater charge and charging for that stormwater separately. And I think that's really important to remember. I'm relatively certain that Home Depot, and I'm calling a Home Depot, but there are many, many other properties that look like that, right? Just one or two toilets with a huge amount of impervious surfaces. That property types will pay a lot more because that's the whole point of what we're trying to do here. Is we want to make the polluters pay for stormwater management. Everybody else, like residential buildings and small commercial buildings with small footprint, it's not necessarily a given that those properties will pay more. And it's very likely, again, the high density residential buildings will pay less. They have high water usage, but very little stormwater generation. So those properties will pay less. What's not clear is what it would look like for single family homeowners, which we do have out in Eastern Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island. But there are ways to make sure that the rate for those single family homeowners will not skyrocket, right? And it probably won't skyrocket anyway. Many of them do have green spaces on their properties, and they can probably think about discounts there. But we can then think about the lifeline rate for those who need to keep water rate affordable, but also maybe tiered rate. That's where these other tools can be combined to make sure that the residential homeowners will not have will not see a huge increase in their water bills. Would they have to be? So all this was to say that the narrative around who's going to end up paying more is really important, but we don't actually know exactly who it's going to be paying, except for those big box industrial and commercial property people. Would they have to be charged based on the activity type on the property? I think there is already some level of activity type discounts or additional charges in the water rate already. If you ever look at the water rate document, it's pages and pages and pages and pages long. It has exemptions and additional charges. And if you are this kind of business type, you're going to be doing this. If your business activity does this, then you have this. So it's possible that activity type will come into play as well, or it probably comes into play already. I remember reading about particular like bakeries have a particular set of rates, and other water intensive businesses have some other additional things. So yes, I see. Some industrial sites will have much heavier pollutant loading. That is true, but some of those places um, probably have if they are on the waterfront and they own their own stormwater pipe that discharges into the waterway, which some of them do, the waterfront industrial sites, they don't connect to the city's sewer system, whether it's combined or separate, if they have their own pipe system that discharges, then they're permitted. They need to have a permit and they can't just discharge whatever they want. So some level of protection exists. Charging by volume alone creates a bad incentive. It has to be by volume during storms. Well, it wouldn't be charging by volume. It would be actually charging by, I think the Philadelphia model, it's charging by the property type combined with area. So it's not the volume of stormwater generated on the site. You're not charged for that in Philadelphia, at least. It's the property type and the surface area of the imperviousness. Any other thoughts, comments? Raise your hand if you know who pays for water now. Yay. And I wonder, one of the things I thought about is what if we require your landlord to post the water bill in the apartment's bulletin board? Wouldn't that be a good transparency thing? That was something I thought about the other day. It's like, city council can probably do that. In Europe, they do that as an incentive to get residents to lower their usage. Yeah, exactly. So the paying for stormwater, whether by volume or area or whatever, right? If you make people pay for stormwater separately, then we actually combine that with green infrastructure incentive program. Yeah, so that was something that we should have made clear. We are also pushing for green infrastructure incentive program at the same time that the city separates out the stormwater charge.
Yeah.
So
And
the
thinking
bottom
about it
line
in
is,
an equitable manner as well, right? Working with a lot of groups to
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Andrew, I saw your hand was raised. Did you want to?
No, so I had raised my hand to say, yes, I understand who's paying. Then I forgot to put it down.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
we're super glad.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say next steps are stay tuned for some Rain Ready New York advocacy that's going to be coming around. We will be sharing it with our newsletter. So if you're not already signed up, please sign up for our newsletter. Um, and and we're also working on doing more outreach and education to community members about incentives that exist at the state level and the city level for installing green infrastructure on private property.
Great. Thank you all for being here.
Michelle, do you want to add contact information here? So if people, I know people receive the newsletter, but if people have certain ideas for who we might want to take this road show to or
Yeah.
boat show to.
Do
Oops.
we have it?
Oh, I had more.
It's
Oh
okay.
my God.
It's
I'm so
okay.
sorry. Oh my good. Okay, well, we talked about Rain Ready, so
We did.
here's the contact. That's what I
There's
was
our
looking for.
contact info.
Yeah. We did the last section without slides. Sorry,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, that's okay. We knew what we were saying. So yeah,
Yeah.
feel free to reach out to us at advocacy. Uh, uh, nyc.org.
Michelle and Lionel, can you stick around?
Of course. Should we stop recording?
Oh, yes.
Thanks everybody for
Thank
being
you.
here. We will, yes, we will send these slides around, and we will send around